Hello, I am Bookface, and I have many mischievous alternatives that are mildly annoying. It's Christmas time again. As a fan of Drawfee, I've decided this is the year we'll be discussing the Yule lads. Boy, sure glad I took on this large undertaking and got sick a week before I was supposed to record something. Isn't that great? Now, I make no claims that my drawings or commentary can compete with the utter insanity of Drawfee, but you best believe I'm still gonna yap. And since I put way too much thought into the drawings, I'm putting a spotlight on them. I had to draw a full baker's dozen of these little gremlins. I'm making all that time worth it, one way or another. With that in mind, let's jump right in. Ooh. I'm still sick. That's what you're getting. The Yule lads are ogre-like figures from Icelandic myth whose stories first appeared around the year 1600. They old. Over time, they became viewed as the children of the figures Grilla
There's a wild gorilla on the loose!
and Lepaluthi, who's definitely just as well known as Grilla.
Yes, and also I think there's gonna be a gorilla.
These two raised them to spread their evil, as parents do. Love you, Mom. The number of lads in their order used to vary from place to place, sometimes numbering in the hundreds. What? Sometimes they're harmless pranksters, but many early accounts describe them as brutal monsters who would demand annual sacrifices. They killed, tortured, and carried off bad children, to then kill, torture, and eat them in a different location.
You're not getting me to no secondary location.
It's thought sometimes that these stories might have just been people trying to traditionally one-up each other by taking the previous story and making it just a little more cruel and brutal. You know, like the Saw movies, or The Purge, or actual American politics. Eventually, they actually became more common as a boogeyman figure than Grilla herself.
Was that the gorilla on the loose? It's not a gorilla!
Thankfully, in modern day, there are 13, with each having a different trait and goal, those goals not being torture and murder. They visit houses in the 13 days before Christmas and stay until Twelfth Night, which I had to look up, is a holiday marking the end of the 12 days of Christmas. No matter how chaotic they get, they keep a tight schedule, and I respect that, because I cannot do that for the life of me. Also, in modern day versions of the myth, they're typically related to Santa Claus. In these versions, children would leave out shoes, and if they were good, they'd get candy. And if they misbehaved, potato. It's a uniquely starchy discipline. On the 12th day of December, a weird goblin came to me. He waddled in and bothered my sheep. Up first is Sheepcoat Claude, or as he's originally known, Stekkjastaur. Also, I'm well aware that me reading these names will probably sound like I'm having a stroke, especially since I'm definitely not practicing beforehand. So this guy harasses people's sheep and tries to drink their milk. And okay, I was going to make a joke about sheep milk being a weird thing, but then I looked it up and I found out not only is sheep milk a fully marketed thing, it's also used to make feta cheese, so I've straight up had it before. So as always, any intelligence I display is immediately balanced out by my utter stupidity and or obliviousness. Okay, backtracking a bit before I made my dairy discoveries. This guy also has an unfortunate feature, which is that he's got crazy stiff legs, so he usually fails at doing the one thing he's supposed to. So for this one, I decided to use green and blue to make it look like he's sort of wearing a landscape of the kind of fields that sheep would be grazing in. It's not camouflage, but I think it's really funny to imagine it as camouflage.
In the way of a ninja!
His hat is literally just called a shepherd's hat for obvious reasons. And I made the legs extra angular and straight to kind of invoke long peg legs, which is also why I gave him incredibly square feet. And finally, I made his hair look like wool, or cotton balls, I guess. And I gave his eyes and nose weird proportions to look kind of sheep-like, and very uncanny, though that part was just a happy accident. On the 13th of December, a weird goblin came to me. He stayed with my cow and drank my dairy. Our second uninvited Christmas guest is called Gully Gawk, or Gilliagaur. So the idea is he hides in gullies, which are these little ravines, also known as those things that are definitely all around barns and cowsheds. You know, a farm's not complete if it doesn't have a bunch of sizable ravines. After jumping in the trenches, he gawks at the cows, I guess. Perv. And then steals milk from milking buckets. And like, bro, if you milk a cow and then just leave all that milk in the bucket, you deserve to get robbed by a weird looking gremlin. Now, for some reason, this was the last one I started sketching out, and I don't just mean it was the last idea I came up with, I mean, I had actually managed some final drafts before I even got a rough draft on this one. And despite that, the design was pretty straightforward. I made him look like a cow. The hat is the hair, horns, and ears of a cow all in one, which also helps since I forgot to add ears, but hey, it's a design choice, totally intentional. And I will say, one of my favorite little details is turning the cow nose into weird little facial hair. It's real goofy looking, though it's pretty hard to see from a distance, so it just looks like he has a cow head. And of course, his clothes, specifically his shirt, is white with dark spots, cause cow. Like I said, pretty straightforward design here. On the 14th of December, a weird goblin came to me. He was so short he only came up to my knees. Third is Stubby, or Sniffer. I, of course, know him as the one that instantly won my heart off of name alone. You really just gonna call him Stubby. He was the shortest of the group and would wait to steal frying pans and eat up the food stuck to them. Not a whole lot to say on this guy, but I have to point out that there's like a whole section of these lads that just lick things and are named after that. So they could have called this guy Pan Licker, but they were just like, nah, short. So this was actually the first one I finished drawing. I wanted him to look like a pretty generic gnome elf thing, which also helps set the standard for the rest of the Yule lads. And of course, I also wanted him to kind of look like he was free transformed, squished down a bit. To that end, I made him a bit wider and pudgier too, to emphasize, you know, how short he is. I also kept his hair super short, going for a kind of buzz cut look, and I gave him a frying pan because, I don't know, maybe he wants a snack. Look how happy he is. On the 15th of December, a weird goblin came to me. He took my spoon and really needs to eat. Coming in at day 4 is Spoon Licker, or, oh good lord, Licker. He was known to steal wooden spoons and lick off any leftover food. He was also typically described as being seriously malnourished. I guess you gotta eat more than just leftover cake batter and whatever else Icelandic people have on their spoons. Sheep milk cheeses, maybe? So this guy ended up being the last one I finished, meaning that I designed him after my creativity was completely tapped out. I just looked through all the color schemes I'd used and concluded that my only options for this one were either pitch black, which is boring, or yellow. So since yellow is more visually interesting, I tried to think of some reason to make it fit, and considering how very unhealthy this guy looks, I just realized jaundice. Which is pretty funny considering I gave all of them a very yellowish skin tone. Wanted it to look goblin-y, so it's a very pale greenish yellow. Also close his eyes to show how super into licking this thing he is. Man, that's a terrible sentence out of context, but we're keeping it for that exact reason. On the 16th of December, a weird goblin came to me. He grabbed my pots and licked up all the grease. Uninvited guest number 5 is Pot Scraper, which is surprisingly not an archaic word for a stoner. Zoinks! Originally, he was known as Potteskeffel, and he was known to steal unwashed pots and lick the extra food from them. You call him a Yule lad, I call him a live-in dishwasher. And actually, I have nothing to say about this guy, at least not until. On the 17th of December, a weird goblin came to me. He stole my snacks and licked the bowl clean. 6 is the somewhat repetitive at this point, Bowl Licker. The bizarre name Askaslaker. So apparently there's some Icelandic tradition thing of keeping lidded bowls of snacks under the bed for nighttime, but to be an ultimate buzzkill, this guy would wait until household inhabitants slept and empty those bowls, going as far as to lick up the tiniest leftovers.
A crumb that was even too small for a mouse.
So yeah, I made these two a pair just because their descriptions were very similar. Also, these two were going to be in a trio with Spoon Licker, but he felt a little more distinct, which is why I separated them. I made the color scheme of these two grays and browns and alternated them between drawings. Their hats are their preferred vessels of licking, and oh yeah, since these guys are all about licking, they should have kind of disturbingly long tongues to get the job done. On the 18th of December, a weird goblin came to me. He slammed the door and wouldn't let me sleep. Capping off a full week of weirdness is Door Slammer, or Scaregler. He would show up in the evening and slam doors repeatedly to prevent anyone from sleeping. And I appreciate how, while the others are fairly passive in their mischief, in a way that you could almost brush off, this guy just goes full paranormal activity in his pranks, and also in a way that serves him zero benefit. He's just an a-hole. So I made this guy's aesthetic dark brown, like a wooden door, and made him crazy angular. Honestly, without the beard, this guy just looks like some off-brand Roblox person. And without the door to slam, he kind of looks like some reject hieroglyphic who couldn't get the choreography down. The beard itself is even made up of some jagged lines and squares, along with the eyes ending up being just straight up triangles. The only non-angular bit of this dude is his nose, which I made extra round to kind of look like a doorknob. And the legs, because I'll be honest, I just didn't want to draw Lego pants. Hey! On the 19th of December, a weird goblin came to me. He ate my yogurt and got diarrhea. Look, I already had to come up with 13 drawings. It's hard to come up with 13 rhymes that fit the narrative and are good, especially when I had to make 3 in a row about licking things. Number 8 is Scaregler, or Scaregammer, both of which actually make just as much sense to me as a default. So apparently Scare, really should have looked up pronunciation beforehand, is some popular Icelandic sour cheese similar to yogurt in consistency. Well, this guy would steal it and stuff himself until he was in terrible pain. This is just a casual Tuesday for a lot of people with lactose intolerance. Look, I love dairy, but if my body literally just made me want to explode after I ate it, okay, yeah, I'd probably eat it anyways. I'm stubborn. So this guy is the one that always stood out to me beforehand whenever I read lists about the Yule lads, just because even the thing he eats is obscure to me. Stubby may have a bigger, more pronounced smile, but this guy feels the purest joy when eating cheesy yogurt thing. I gave his clothes a kind of light coloration, like plain yogurt, and also made his hat kind of look like an empty tub of yogurt, and I even made his hair look like globs of yogurt, which, now that I'm reading off my script, oh, that could have gone very bad if I rendered it wrong. White drippy substance for beard is not the best idea. On the 20th of December, a weird goblin came to me. He stole my meat in form of weenies. Dramatically descending through the ceiling is number 9, Sausage Swiper. Man, we're just not even trying with the innuendos anymore, are we? Or Bugnakraker. You just call him a cracker? Am I allowed to say that? This guy would hang in the rafters where smoked sausages would hung and would steal and eat them. Pretty solid plan. Just a shame that name aged so poorly. So let me tell you, this guy is the worst. Just like my jokes. My ideas for this guy were pretty simple. The pinkish purple colors are all meant to match sausage, and his hair and beard are little tiny sausage links, which honestly came out really funny. I also committed to the general sausagey shape for the head, ears, nose, and even his eyes. Honestly, the trickiest part of this was, 1, getting him to semi-realistically hang off of a rafter, and then 2, figure out how to work a rafter into this weird broken dollhouse thing that I did for the main drawing. A lot of technicalities I had to work out. On the 21st of December, a weird goblin came to me. He watched me sleep and was too uncanny. Our first Yule lad in the double digits is Window Peeper, or as he's infuriatingly called, Geiger. He was known to stare through windows and watch the people inside. Sus. He would steal any appealing children's toys, extra sus, and if a child looked out and saw him, he made scary faces until they left. Which is still sus, but also kind of funny. Okay, so I'm confident to say that aside from one to come up a bit later, this is the absolute creepiest of these guys. The clothes color and design of the hat are meant to be a reference to the psychic type symbol from Pokemon, since, you know, it's just a big old eye. For the design, I used this meme of a person with blue eyes just staring, since it's kinda off looking, and it ended up helping me give a very unique shape to everything. This guy got a big old head. As for the facial hair, I gave him a goatee and a porn stash because I thought it was creepy. On the 22nd of December, a weird goblin came to me. He took a whiff and robbed a bakery. 11th, we have Door Sniffer, or Gata Thiffer. He would hide behind doors and sniff out bread and cakes that he would then steal. I'm not sure why the door is the ideal hiding spot for sniffing, but to each their own. Also, he especially sought out Laufabrau, or leaf bread. So this was actually the first one I was able to visualize, and from the very beginning I knew my design was going to look like some weird caricature, and I'm very happy how bizarre it ended up. I made the hat look like a nose too, with a spot resembling a nostril. I knew I wanted this guy's color scheme to be green, and I wanted his beard to be this weird, bumpy, flowy thing, but I really didn't know why until I realized I was just making his aesthetic boogers. I worked hard to make sure this guy's expression showed how super into sniffing this guy is. On the 23rd of December, a weird goblin came to me. He hooked my food fishing through the chimney. Number 12 also happens to crank it up to a 12, being named Meat Hook, or Ket Crocker. This guy sounds crazy intense, and I love him for it. So apparently the day he shows up is called St. Thorlax Day, which sounds like a really cool regional Pokemon variant we need. Thorlax, I choose you. And on this holiday, smoked lamb is traditionally cooked. So being quite the opportunist, this guy has some specially made metal hook that he uses to reach down the chimney and steal the cooked meat to eat all for himself. And honestly, I'd just be too impressed to even try to stop him. If you can fish a lamb leg out from a chimney with a metal hook, you've earned that meal. So the theme for drawing this guy was quite simply horror movie reject. My headcanon is that Meat Hook came to be in that weird in-between time of the Yule lads being horrific murder machines and Santa's regional helpers. He's just kind of in the middle of horrifying and goofy. I made everything about this guy spiky and harsh, from his beard to his animalistic pupils. His color scheme is red, because of blood, of course, according to color theory. And I even made his hat look like some big cartoon steak. Did anyone else ever look at those things in old cartoons and just decide that is the most delicious thing I have ever seen? Aside from designing evil Santa, I also had him bend back like he's fishing and got a real big one on the line, despite never actually putting meat at the end of the hook in my drawing. On the 24th of December, a weird goblin came to me. He stole my light and a tiny bit of heat. Last and probably not least is Candle Beggar, or Kertasniker. Before, electricity, candles were expensive and very hard to come by, thus making them a great gift. So this greedy little guy would find children who were given candles and just try to take them for himself. Also, since candles at this time were made of animal fat, he would often eat them. Maybe he just wanted a light snack. So I decided to make this guy a little more tall and lanky and gave him a lot more straight lines and squared off angles. His hat is of course supposed to look like a little tiny flame, and I gave him a warm gradient to his clothes from red to orange to yellow. His hair is meant to resemble wax, which really toes the line of acceptable purely due to the waxy color being solidly off-white. Otherwise, this video may or may not get demonetized. Also, if you look closely, you might notice that his eye is randomly blue. Chandelure. Graphic design is my passion. And there we have 13 little dudes who want to screw up Christmas. I want to know the one that gives you a seasonal cold, because I have some words for that little Yule lad. But it was a real fun, goofy little story and interesting history to it. Maybe someday in the future I'll just design the forgotten Yule lads. Maybe. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Comment down below and subscribe. If you want to support me and all the weird crap I do, I have a Patreon. If you sign up for as little as $1 a month, you get access to voting and goofy little add-on things I do like this. Look how silly that was. And if you sign up for $5 a month, you get access to all the little pieces of my drawings that you can rearrange and mix and match into your own horrifying creatures, like this guy. Oh wow, hey, good to see you again. I'm so glad you wanted to come back, especially since I didn't want to make another one. With all that, I'll see you. Oh no, it's a new Yule lad. Video delayer. That's why this video came out so late, and definitely not any other reason. Oh no! Oh no! See you next time. Bye.